Who on Who? The podcast devoted to the review of classic series Doctor Who DVDs in no particular order.
Greetings, fellow Doctor Who fans, and welcome to a Coming to America edition of Who on Who, the podcast dedicated to the review of classic series Doctor Who DVDs in no particular order. We are your hosts, David Huey.
And Marty Huey.
And Marty is back at his own location this time.
Back several miles away from the homestead.
Several miles away, yes, but still here and ready to review the 96 television movie.
The only Doctor Who that I was alive for before the new series.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oddly enough, I actually remember walking in on you watching this movie a long time ago.
I could say something really creepy, but I'm not going to.
Yeah,
I'm just going to let that. This is where my mind is. Shame on me. We're recording this. Actually, it's funny because, you know, there's we'll be talking a little bit about the plot here in a bit, but this movie is so much about, like, you know, the new millennia and, you know, Y2K and all that, that, you know, that was sort of projected to happen after the, you know, because the movie was actually produced and released in 96.
Yeah.
But today, as we're recording this, is 10/10/10.
That's weird.
No matter if you're over there in the UK because you put your day in front of your month, it's still 10/10/10. So we are recording this today on the 10th of October, 2010. We're squeezing this one out pretty quick on the heels of the Enlightenment review.
Mm-hmm.
And that is kind of exciting that we're getting, but I don't want people to get spoiled because it's not like we're going to be stepping up our tempo at all. You know, this is a marathon for us. We're all about taking it nice and slow.
And I'm already a little tired.
Yeah, I know.
This
I'm breathing heavy. My side hurts. So anyway, listen, before we get going, we got just a couple of announcements. First of all, the number one Who on Who store item, Marty, say it for me.
Packer.
Yes, the Packer T-shirt. We have sold our first Packer T-shirt, and I was like thrilled. I mean, like it's the first Who on Who store item that anyone has bought besides me. So I was very, very excited about that. So thank you out there to the purchaser of the Packer T-shirt, and they are still available in various sizes and colors. Also, for those of you who may have seen this on our Facebook page, I don't think we've put anything on the official Who on Who page yet, but there is something coming. If you are a fan of great popcorn, and who is not a popcorn fan? I've yet to meet anybody that told me they didn't like popcorn. But you can get chocolate-covered popcorn, you can get caramel-covered popcorn, or you can get buttered popcorn, non-buttered. It's, you know, whether you want to go healthy, non-healthy, or whatever. Even for the vegetarians out there, there's no meat in any of this, so you're completely fine. My number 2 son, Ian, is a Cub Scout. Here in America, that is the younger version of the Boy Scouts of America, and they sell popcorn as a fundraiser to be able to do things with their Cub Scout pack, whether it's go on campouts or help some of the more underprivileged kids in our society, or the kids that want to do scouting but their families can't afford the cost of it. So it is a great thing to be able to help out, and a great way to get some great popcorn. So while you're watching these awesome Doctor Who DVDs, you've got something to snack on, because who doesn't like snacking while watching a good movie or a good TV show? You know what I mean?
Or listening to your favorite podcast.
Or listening to your favorite podcast, you're right. But see, I tend to listen to podcasts while I'm driving, and I have a 5-speed, so I can't really eat and drive. Probably too much information, but anyway, all right. So enough of selling the soap there or the popcorn as it is. If you are interested in the popcorn, check our Facebook page. I believe the link is still up there, and we will be putting the link out on the official Who on Who website very soon with another colorful Dave Hingley picture to go along with it to spotlight it. They are nice. They're nice, and they're a lot of fun too. And just as is our show logo for this particular episode of the TV movie,
which features me as the Doctor this time.
You as the Doctor, which I think is fitting because of the hair.
Yeah, and my hair is reaching that length
and you do have a tendency to wander around the house in a bed sheet, or at least you did when you lived here. So
I know I still do.
Oh, okay.
It's just that's good. Smaller now.
Yeah, it's good to know that some things never change. All right, so I guess without anything else, let's move on to listener feedback.
Here's the mail, it never fails. It makes me want to wag my tail. When it comes, I want to wail.
Okay, the email box filled up surprisingly fast, considering it's only been I think a couple of weeks.
It's only been about 2 weeks since
it's only been about 2 weeks since the last episode, and we have gotten some feedback. So I'm going to jump right in here. Our first email comes from Brent Johnson. And Brent says, "Hey guys, just wanted to pass along a funny story that reminded me of Marty. Through Doctor Who, I've discovered a show called The Tomorrow People. In an episode called The Vanishing Earth, not only did I notice the voice of John Woodnett, a Doctor Who veteran, but who showed his face but none other than Kevin Stoney, who played Vaughn in The Invasion. I instantly said aloud, say it for me, Marty. Right, and laughed to myself. If you can stand the over-repetitive music and overacting, it's not that bad. Features a couple of babes to look at, too. Love the show, guys, and you're going to love Enlightenment. Brent Johnson, Raleigh, North Carolina." And Brent, obviously, he emailed that in right under the wire after we started recording the Enlightenment review, so by now Brent already knows that we did love Enlightenment quite a bit, as a matter of fact. But, all right, let's see now. All right, okay, our next email comes from our buddy Kyle Anderson over in Los Angeles.
Hey,
Kyle says, "Hello again, David and Marty. Firstly, great podcast about Enlightenment. It's one of my favorite stories, and even though I've watched it a few times, listening to you guys talk about it makes me want to watch it yet again. So thanks for that. Secondly, sorry to hear that you're not going to Gallifrey 22, but it's 100% understandable. I live in L.A., and I'm already having to budget for it, so I can only imagine what a financial strain multiplying that by 2 and adding airfare would be. Sorry I won't get to meet you both, but I'll just look forward to it the following year. We will too, Kyle. Lastly, I am honored and thrilled that you would think of me to be your Gallifrey correspondent. I would, of course, love to do that, whatever you want. I booked a room in the airport Marriott, so I'll be right in the thick of the action, so I should be able to provide whatever coverage you want. I'm planning on doing a piece or two for Nerdist.com, which I write for as well, so I'll already be in the reporter mindset. I'm incredibly excited about the event, and now having this opportunity makes it even more fun. Thank you. What kind of things were you thinking of? Hooray. Until next time, Kyle Anderson in Los Angeles, California." And Kyle, you're going to need a blonde wig, some dark sunglasses, a trench coat, and a pocket tape recorder of some kind. And we will be back to you with more details shortly. But no, seriously, thank you for being willing to do that. And we will be in touch with you off air to talk about anything that you may be able to, may be willing or able to. And Nerdist.com, they gave us a great plug, actually. Remember, they covered our exclusive about the 96 movie coming here to America. So we thank Nerdist.com for that as well. This next email, I have to say that while I was getting these ready, the name associated with this email dropped off of my sheet that I'm reading from, so I apologize to whoever the mysterious emailer is. Please forgive me. Write in and let me know. I'm certain that I'm almost 100% certain that it's David H96 who wrote in last time. So hopefully that's who this is. But it says, "Hello again, guys. I loved your review of Enlightenment and have since bought it."
Yeah, that is David.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay, great. He says, Have since bought it. I cannot wait to see what you guys have to say on the TV movie and the Eighth Doctor. This is what got me into Doctor Who. Very interesting. Mm-hmm. Every time I watch this, I think of what could have been a bright future for the Eighth Doctor, but sadly, it was not to be. By the way, my name is David Hartnell. Oh, brilliant. Oh,
nice.
Beautiful. Love that. Love it. Okay, I'll never forget that. Okay, it is him. All right. And completely forgot my name in the first email. Sorry about that. Well, now we're even, David, because I forgot it too. Any Pertwee story that you could review would be great. P.S. I have a name for Richard's band, the Sea Devils. Great idea there, too. Yeah. I might start a band just so I can have that name.
Any Doctor Who bands that want to start up, these are all for takes.
Yeah,
so.
Yes, they are. All right, the next email comes from Owen Hughes. Owen says, Hi, David and Marty. I figured you could do with more feedback from foreign lands. So your latest episode, Enlightenment, seems as good a chance as any to drop you guys a line to let you know how much I appreciate the show and look forward to it here in Australia.
Ooh.
Most podcasts probably dread new listeners winding back the years to their first outing, but this is what I did after you were a guest on Podshock many months ago. I'm really glad I did. It's such a blast listening to the evolution of the show from what was a man with a mic and a DVD collection to the wonderfully polished product it is today. Marty, the boys in the bunker, some great guests, and an excellent theme tune have resulted in Who on Who being essential listening whenever a new episode appears. In Australia, Doctor Who ran in a never-ending cycle of repeats, starting from Spearhead from Space to whatever the latest episode was. Once you ran out of episodes, you went back to the beginning. This was great at the time, but meant I never saw a Troughton or Hartnell episode until the 1990s on VHS. Having these stories on DVD and with a fantastic selection of extras that puts any other TV show releases to shame is something I really appreciate. In my eyes, Dan Hall, the restoration team, and everyone working on Who at 2 Entertain have earned a podcast dedicated to their work. It still amazes me that there's episodes I still haven't seen, considering my 30-plus years of fandom. Before I go, I did have some information about Ace's baseball/Rounders bat that you might find useful. You might find it strange this information comes from Australia, where we play neither baseball or Rounders, but this might be a new perspective on this fascinating topic. Here it is. For the love of God, please stop talking about the bat. As only an Aussie could say that. I love it. Anyway, thanks again for the great show. Just keep doing what you're doing, and I'll be listening right up until the last DVD is reviewed. All the best. Owen Hughes from Sydney, Australia. Owen, thank you so much. I mean, that's cool. That's Australia. The land down under. I'm not going to break into a minute work thing. I know what that, but that is awesome that somebody from Australia listens to us.
I know. So wait, when were you on Podshock? I don't remember you ever telling me.
I was on Podshock when was I on Podshock? I was on Podshock when they were doing their series of back-to-back regeneration episodes.
Mm-hmm.
They started with the first Doctor with 10th Planet, then went to Power of the Daleks, then went to War Games, then Spearhead from Space, and on and on and on. Well, I did. Let me think now. I did Legopolis with them,
I see.
and it was a blast. I had a great time. James Naughton was not there, unfortunately, but I got to hang out with Lewis and Ken, and we talked about Legopolis. I had a lot of fun. So. That was quite a while back, but very enjoyable. Okay, next email comes from Steve DeStacy, our buddy Steve from the TARDIS Tavern. Steve says, Hey guys, another great episode with your review of Enlightenment. I would give your latest episode a 55 out of 55.15879.1. Sorry to hear that I won't get to meet the pair of you at Gallifrey 22 in February. I was so looking forward to the Hui hot tub party. I know Sean will be very disappointed as he has been waxing his chest in preparation. You know what? I got to stop right there and say I'm actually now more glad that we're not going to Gallifrey 22.
I'm not sure I want to go next year either.
He says, now that I think about it, maybe it's best you aren't going to have the hot tub party. He says, I have an Irish joke for you. An Irishman was staggering home with, should I read this offline first? I think we'll be all right. An Irishman, see, I don't read these ahead of time. Marty does. An Irishman was staggering home with a pint of whiskey in his back pocket when he slipped and fell badly. Struggling to his feet, he felt something wet running down his leg. Please, Lord, he prayed, let it be blood. Steve from the TARDIS Tavern. And we've just lost at least 3 more Irish listeners. But let's move on.
They're going to have our pictures of the Irish border. Don't let these guys in.
Yeah, exactly. They'll just slap up a Who on Who T-shirt that they burned in effigy. Okay, this next one is actually Richard, the guy that has the band. So, dear doctors, thanks so much for the band names. We love them all. I think we're going to go with Delta and the Bannermen, unless your listeners come up with something even better. We were also keen on Cyber Control and Regeneration 12. We considered John Smith and the Common Men, which is the name of the band Susan listens to on her radio in An Unearthly Child, which got me thinking, could that be what inspired the Doctor to occasionally call himself John Smith? It could be. I was just wondering that myself. Looking forward to the McGann review, the TV movie was accused by critics of trying too hard to appeal to an American audience. So it will be interesting to get your opinion on that. All the best, Richard. Well, and you know what? We will be talking about that very, very soon.
Yes.
So, but yeah, that's cool. Delta and the Bannerman. Was that one of our ideas, or did
I think that was yours, actually.
Was that mine? Really?
Yeah.
Wow. All right. Well, Richard, if you guys hit it big, right, I'd like some backstage ducats to come say hi at some point. Okay. This one comes from our buddy Wildstar.
Hey.
Hold on. Let me get a breather here because he was feeling good on the keyboard when he wrote this one. He says, I was recently goofing around on YouTube and I stumbled across the much maligned Peter Cushing movies Doctor Who and the Daleks and Daleks Invasion Earth 2150 AD. They're legally and all in one go, unlike the various bootleg videos, which are always broken up into shorts. They do have a few commercials in them, but they are an easy way for any Doctor Who fan who's never seen them to experience the horror for themselves. I've always felt that every Whovian should see at least one of them, if for no other reason than the fact that I did. If I can take the pain and carry on, so can everyone else. They would even be enjoyable if viewed with a group in a Mystery Science Theater 3000 kind of way. As for potential names for a rock band, I would recommend The Unearthly Children. I'm tempted to recommend Don't Blink as well, but that's already the title of a song by the rock band Chameleon Circuit. Oh, that's a neat band name, too. Chameleon Circuit. Personally, I prefer their song, An Awful Lot of Running. I love them both. All right, last episode, you both mentioned that you felt the Guardians deserved to be brought into the modern Doctor Who continuity. I wholeheartedly agree. In fact, the White Guardian is closely tied to one of my pet theories about the Doctor and the TARDIS. The White Guardian is responsible for maintaining order in the universe, but he is loath to get his own hands dirty when it comes to getting the job done. I believe that the White Guardian could be the reason why the TARDIS always seems to bring the Doctor to the precise time and place his compulsive meddling will do the most good. It happens too often to be coincidence. Maybe the TARDIS is being directly manipulated regularly or just has an agreement with the White Guardian. If this is the case, then someone as powerful as the White Guardian would be unwilling to allow one of his favorite tools for order in the cosmos to die once the Doctor reaches his final regeneration. It also stands to reason that if the Doctor is one of the White Guardian's best, then the Master would have to be the obvious choice for the Black Guardian, and would go far towards explaining how he manages to keep coming back time and again. If the production team of the modern series decides to address the regeneration issue at all, this seems like a good way to go about it. Some also suggest to just ignore the issue of a regeneration limit entirely, which also has some merit, I suppose. As things stand, the Doctor only has one regeneration left if we go by the continuity of the original series, which put the limit at 12, thus 13 incarnations. Right now, the two of you, and once this is read on air, many of your listeners are thinking Wildstar doesn't know how to count. But I can assure you that I do. The Doctor's 9th regeneration gave us David Tennant in the Series 1 finale, when he was killed by the Time Vortex. The Doctor's 10th regeneration also gave us David Tennant in the Series 4 finale when he was killed by a Dalek. He may have cheated the process a bit in order to keep his body, but he still used up enough energy to remake his body, which is why we later got the Mortal Doctor. Thus, he has now used a total of 11 regenerations. Now that Matt Smith is on the scene, keep up the great reviews. Wildstar. Of course, that's...
I wouldn't actually count that David Tennant one as a regeneration.
No, I don't think that you can, Wildstar, because as a matter of fact, during the Lodger episode, when he headbutts his roommate, and I'm blanking on the guy's name here.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
But when he headbutts him and gives him all the knowledge, and the guy's like pointing at the Doctor and he's going, you're, and the Doctor says 11. He refers to himself as the 11. So he considers himself the 11th incarnation. So, I can see where you're coming from there, but I don't think that the official show canon is going to look at it that way. I think
you can a Time Lord can start the regeneration process and not actually finish it, and then it wouldn't count as a regeneration.
Well, yeah, that, and I think, honestly, on a more pedantic level, I think it would be a little too confusing to the average viewer when they're looking back over the history of Doctor Who and they have to count David Tennant twice. Yeah. I'm not saying he didn't do a good enough job to deserve being counted twice, but I just don't know that they would go that route. So, anyway. Okay, our last email comes from Bobby. And I believe this is Bobby's first email to us, and she writes in, and I'm assuming she, because it says it's B-O-B-B-I.
It's a she, yeah.
Okay. Well, then say she's a she. Don't say it's a she. That's not nice. So, she is a she. Okay, there we go. All right. Sorry, I had to be a daddy there for a minute. Okay. Bobby says, I've been enjoying the show for a few months now. I found Doctor Who through the new series and love hearing about classic shows. We recently got Netflix, so I've been having a lot of fun getting to know the previous Doctors. Unfortunately, the library is limited, but I think I've gotten a good taste of them all. I just watched the Key to Time series, and I'm excited to hear you discuss it. I'll have to watch them all again. Darn. I recently had the pleasure of introducing my son to Doctor Who. He's watched almost all of my David Tennant DVDs and will be ready to check out more Doctors soon. I love how he's taken what he's watched and has integrated it into his playing. I feel like I finally deserve a Mom of the Year award. Thanks for all of the work that you put into the show. I look forward to the next episode. Best wishes, Bobby. Bobby, you do get Mom of the Year award for me because I think that's great. And every kid, no matter where they are, in the UK, in the USA, Canada, Australia, outer Mongolia, I don't care. Every kid should get a chance to point a pen or something like a sonic screwdriver or a toy sonic screwdriver. They should run around holding their fist out in front of their face, pretending to be a Dalek. My kids, not Marty. Well, Marty might do this. He doesn't live here anymore. But the younger kids,
well, it depends what you're talking about.
They run around playing Doctor Who a lot outside, and they have a lot of fun doing it, and they talk constantly about which Doctor is which. I have most of the Doctor action figures, not the monsters or the companions that have come out, but really just the Doctors themselves, and I have all but number 8 and number 11. Mm-hmm. So they will come down here, and even my youngest, who is going to be 5 next month, can tell you, he can point to each Doctor and tell you which Doctor it is. So, no, Mom of the Year, hands down, to Bobby. So, yay for you. And thank you for the email. It was very sweet of you to write in and let us know about your son and about all that. So, give us a little more feedback on the little guy, how he's doing, what's he like about Tennant, what's he going to do for Halloween, any of that stuff if you want to, as long as that's not too creepy. But I love when people get to brag on their kids. So all right, I believe that brings us to the end of
No Mark Nuttall?
No Mark Nuttall. You know why? Because we're so quick out of the gate with this one. Mark is feverishly typing right now, and it's not going to make it. I'm sorry, but anyway,
maybe next time, Mark.
Maybe next time, Mark. Maybe next time. But all right. Well, before we go any further, we had mentioned on a couple episodes back on Who that we were going to be having a call-in voicemail box system. For those of you that are a little reluctant to type out an email, or for those of you that just want to, shoot off a quick thought to us, depending on which side of the pond you're on, okay, you can do it from one of two numbers. If you're in the UK, you can dial, and I hope I get all my numbers correct here. I'm just a dumb American. But the number I was given from the guys in the Titanium Bunker is 0845-287-2833. I was told that this is, quote, a local number, but depending on your region, I imagine that you can be charged. It is not a toll-free number. You may call in and you may leave a message for Marty and I there, and Marty and I are going to be recording a special greeting for our listeners and getting it up there as quick as possible. So that is the UK number. Now, the American number is area code 615-245-9048. Now, that is a pay call for anybody outside of the Middle Tennessee area. So even I would have to pay to call that number. But the flip side of that is I think most cell phone providers will allow you to call long distance without extra charge on that. And I know I got free long distance calling on my home phone too. So
is that a 615 number?
Yeah, it's a 615 number.
Oh, so it's around Murfreesboro then.
Yeah, it's around where you are. Just in case anybody's going to try to backtrack that number and come after one of us, it'll be you, not me. But
okay.
No, seriously.
I'm just here to be the meat shield.
Well, yeah, pretty much. Well, I mean, you're younger than I am, and you can move faster. No, I couldn't get a number in our area code for it, and depending on what the feedback is, we may go to a more of a toll-free kind of number. If we can swing it. Another option is we had a little brief online chat with the Hangley brothers. Now, let me ask you this. Okay, I mean, I love them both, but don't they sound like mad scientists when they're talking to each other?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they do. It's kind of scary because, should we bring up Project XYZ to the Who's right now? They go, no, we that one is still, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just sitting over here being very concerned that
Should
whatever
we tell
they're
them
doing.
What's in the basement?
Yes. Should we tell them what that grumbling sound is? No. No. That's a Christmas gift. And I'm thinking, no, I'm going to convert to Judaism. I don't think I want to even celebrate Christmas this year. But anyway, we did have a nice we had a nice conference call with the guys today over Skype right before we started recording, and Mike is going to try to put together a way for people to contact these voicemail boxes for free on the Who on Who website in the Contact Us section. So once that goes live, we will be letting everyone know. Stay tuned for that. We're looking forward to it. So, all right. Well, that about does it for listener feedback. And normally at this time, this is when we would set the TARDIS controls. So let's go ahead and do that.
Okay.
We do have another music segment, but I'm going to play the music segment before we get to DVD extras, I think. So I'm going to go ahead and set the TARDIS controls here to the 14th of May, 1996, so we can watch the American release. This actually came out on the 27th in the UK and on the 12th in Canada. Those sneaky Canadians got it 2 days before we did. But I'm going to set this for May 14th, 1996, and we're going to go watch the 96 Paul McGann TV movie. Here we go. Hold on. All right. Okay, We are here. The Eighth Doctor, Paul McGann.
Yes.
I have to say that that this particular DVD, to review this, it requires less introduction and less build-up probably for the true Doctor Who fan, because this is McGann's only outing on video as the Doctor. So, in some ways, and we'll talk about this later in DVD extras a little bit, in some ways this works in his favor, but in many ways it works against him, and it definitely works against us as fans, unfortunately. And we're going to talk a lot about McGann's Doctor while we go over the movie here. But the movie, as just about everybody knows, is an American co-production with the BBC, with Fox, with Universal. Mm-hmm. At one point, Steven Spielberg's Amblin Entertainment was involved. There is a rich and sordid history, but we really owe kudos to Philip Segal, who is the guy that really went to bat for this whole project. And I sort of get the feeling from watching a lot of the DVD extras, again, we'll talk about later, but at times he's had to defend the movie. And, I'm going to say right out of the bat that I don't have a problem with the movie. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but to quote my buddy Ken Deep from Doctor Who Podshock, I'll take bad Doctor Who over just about any other good show on a good day. Yeah. Bad Doctor Who is better than no Doctor Who.
That's true. Right? Yeah.
So let's talk about it a little bit. Yeah. The movie takes place here in the United States in San Francisco. Was actually shot in Vancouver. The movie begins with a shootout in an alley with an Asian gang. And the TARDIS materializes. Well, no, let me take a step back.
Yeah, no, it doesn't start there. It starts on the planet Skaro, which was last seen in, what was that?
Remembrance of the
Daleks, where it blew up.
It got blown up, yeah.
Sure.
So
how that happened, I guess it's New Skaro, but the Master is on trial for something, and he is what happens? He gets obliterated.
The Master is executed. The Master is put on trial for his crimes, and he's executed. And his final request before he is executed is to have the Doctor take his ashes back to Gallifrey. Mm-hmm. So we have that. Okay. A little bit confusing for longtime Doctor Who fans, because let's be honest, like you said, Skaro was blown up in Remembrance of the Daleks. You can factor in the TARDIS is a time machine, so maybe they're going back to before Skaro was blown up. I don't know. Maybe like you said, maybe it's New Skaro. Maybe the Doctor missed. I don't know. Maybe he blew up a completely innocent planet that just had the unfortunate mishap of looking like Skaro and being a little too close. I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know.
But so there is that. First of all. Second of all, why would the Daleks be putting the Master on trial?
Yeah, that seems a little backwards. Why would their whole mission is to kill the Doctor and take over everything, so why are they putting the Master on trial?
Well, yeah, that and
then having the Doctor pick up his ashes. That doesn't make any sense.
Let the Doctor go, here you go, and even giving him a last wish. That just doesn't sound like the Daleks at all. I mean, the Daleks are gonna, okay, guilty. I mean, they're not even gonna put him on trial. They're just gonna execute him. I mean, that's the Daleks in a nutshell. So, I don't know that I understand all of that. I'm sure that. Doctor Who fans, because we are all great at
warping things to
yes, exactly, at retconning. We are retcon masters. I'm sure that somebody will make sense of all of that at some point. But let's move forward in the story. The Doctor takes the Master's remains, locks them up in a chest in the TARDIS. Let's talk about the TARDIS for a second.
He's changed the desktop theme again.
He has. He's not doing choral like the 9th and 10th Doctor will, but he's doing more steampunk. Yeah. And I like this TARDIS.
I like the TARDIS.
I really, really do. I kind of like the Victorian, somewhat Gothic, the little nods here and there to different things. I think there's a pipe organ, and there's just all these different things in there that are really, really interesting and add certain eccentricities to it. So.
Oh yeah. One thing I noticed when they were kind of panning around the TARDIS, showing certain things. But they showed a 900-year diary.
Yes.
And the Doctor's diary just keeps getting bigger because I think William Hartnell had a 200-year diary and Tom Baker had a 500-year diary.
Yes. But you notice it's getting physically smaller because his 900-year diary was about the size of, I don't know.
A pocketbook.
Yeah, it really was. It was like a Virgin, New Adventures novel or something like that. And yet I think Tom Baker's 500-year diary, when they pulled that thing out, it was huge. It was like the New York Metropolitan phone book times 5. I mean, it was humongous. And but it was an interesting prop that they use. And the Doctor must be a master as shorthand to get 900 years worth of stuff into that little book.
Maybe, I don't know.
Or maybe the book is bigger on the inside.
I was about to say, maybe it's bigger on the inside.
Yeah. So I guess we could go there as well. But yeah, it is a nice touch. They show the Doctor sitting down eating jelly babies out of the jar, which was a nice tip of the hat to the Fourth Doctor. Right. Drinking some tea and listening to an opera, listening to music on a Victrola. On an old record player. So, all kind of interesting thematic touches here and there. But then the Master breaks out of the box. How? We don't know.
We don't know. He's ashes. He shouldn't be able to move.
He's a slime worm now. He's not ashes. So he gets out. He gets into the TARDIS console, and all of a sudden the TARDIS shows up in San Francisco on Earth. California.
Well, the Doctor discovers that he breaks out, and then the TARDIS.
Oh, that's right. That's right. He starts messing on the console. That's right. And so he lands the TARDIS there 2 days before the turn of the century.
To I assume look for the Master or do something.
Well, I think he recognizes that the Master is attacking the TARDIS, and so he brings the TARDIS down. Now, it's never, to me, quite clear why he steps out of the TARDIS after it lands immediately without checking the scanner.
I actually wrote that down. Why didn't he check the scanners?
Yeah, I check the scanner every other time. Even if he knows he's on Earth, flip the scanner open and go, oh, there's a gunfight going on out there. I better wait.
Maybe I should hang on a second until they leave.
Yeah. So he steps out of the TARDIS. Bam! He takes one in the wing, takes one in the leg.
Yeah, second worst Doctor death in my opinion.
Yeah, and goes down. Right, hits the ground. One of the gangbangers, a guy named Chang Li, finds the Doctor and rushes over to the Doctor, and the Doctor sees the Master or something that he recognizes as dangerous. Oozing out of the lock of the TARDIS, which was a great visual. And then we proceed to have the story of the Doctor being taken to the hospital, the bullets being removed, the X-ray being confusing, which was a nice tip to Spearhead from Space because they had the X-ray in Spearhead from Space that show the two hearts as well. And they go on to call in a cardiologist, Dr. Grace Holloway, played by the lovely Daphne Ashbrook. And let me just say that if you have the opportunity to meet Daphne Ashbrook, she is a sweetheart. She is one of the nicest, most approachable people that you will ever meet. I met her in the sports bar at Gallifrey 21. I was introduced to her by Kendi from Podshock. She was hanging out at the Podshock table and would talk to anyone. She didn't care who you were. I mean, completely approachable, and what a sweetheart. So if by chance someone gets a chance to tell her that I said this, Daphne, it was a pleasure to meet you, and loved your performance on this. So anyway, Dr. Grace is called away from seeing Madame Butterfly, the opera. Comes there, goes to do an operation on the Doctor, and winds up killing the doctor because his physiology is so much different.
Yeah.
The doctor gets toe tagged as a John Doe. He gets put in the morgue, and there he regenerates into the McGann Eighth Doctor.
The Eighth Doctor.
Yes. The Eighth Doctor is amnesiac at first, which is interesting. But I don't think it's the first time that the Doctor's ever suffered slight memory loss as to, but this one seemed to be pretty volatile.
I think that the Eighth Doctor is actually more prone to amnesia than the other Doctors, because even in some of the Big Finish audios, he gets amnesia somehow. Mm-hmm. Like every now and then, like he'll start the story and he won't remember who he is, and he has to backtrack. That happened in Minuet in Hell. That was one of the Big Finish ones. Yeah,
that was one of the early Big Finish ones, wasn't it?
Yeah. I haven't heard some of the more recent ones. I've just heard like some of the early ones.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you that I think the fans or possibly the writer at some point or someone retconned the idea that the reason the Doctor was amnesiac when he regenerated was because when he quote-unquote died, he was anesthetized.
That's probably why, yeah.
So, I don't know about you, but it doesn't take much to anesthetize me, and I'll tell you, it's a deep sleep. It really is. And so, I mean, he's practically out of it before he regenerates. And so, but anyway, thematically, as far as plot wise, it sort of helps a little bit when you're trying to spoon feed an American audience, because we have to remember, and of course, a couple of the emails alluded to this as well, that they had to sort of cater to the American audience to a degree, because even though they were aware that Doctor Who is a huge cult hit here in America, they wanted to reach a wider and broader audience, and so there are certain things that I think that they tried to do to sort of help spoon feed the Doctor Who mythos to the people. It's interesting if you listen to the commentary on the DVD between Paul McGann, Sylvester McCoy, and Nicholas Briggs is actually the moderator.
Oh, really?
And yeah, and we'll talk about that when we get to the DVD extras. But
I'd like to hear about that actually.
Sylvester McCoy actually says that he felt that they should have just started the movie with Paul McGann as the Doctor, and then if it did get picked up for a series, go back later and explain the regeneration between the Seventh Doctor and the Eighth Doctor. But that starting off with one Doctor, killing him, having him regenerate into the Eighth Doctor, was too confusing for new Doctor Who fans.
Right. That's understandable.
Yeah,
and they did that with the new series, and it worked out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they did. But anyway, so as the Doctor comes to remember who he is, and the only attachment he feels with anybody is Dr. Grace Holloway, because let's face it, she was there when he died. He pulled her mask off in the operating room, and so he saw her face, and so he is sort of bonded to her a bit. And a budding, call it a romance, call it a friendship, whatever, a relationship starts to happen there. Mm-hmm. And before long, he convinces her that he is a Time Lord, and he realizes that the Master has gotten out. The Master has possessed the body of an ambulance driver named Bruce. And
played by
Eric Roberts. And Eric Roberts is the brother of Julia Roberts.
Mm-hmm. So. Eric Roberts, I thought, did a pretty good job here, but I almost would have, I don't know, maybe this is a little, I don't know what this is, but I almost would have rather seen somebody British play that role.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And Eric Roberts, from what I understand, is a wonderful convention guest, and apparently has been a Doctor Who fan for a very long time.
I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, but he is. That was a concession. That was one of the concessions that the various production companies, the BBC were very stern in certain things, and this is all covered in the wonderful set of extras here, but. The BBC wanted to keep the TARDIS. Mm-hmm. They wanted to keep the Doctor as being very British. Okay, mm-hmm. So that's when Fox and Universal said, "Okay, well, fine. Well, we want an American to play the bad guy." And so essentially that's what happened.
I don't know if he's British or not, but I wrote down that Paul Bettany probably would have made a better master than Eric Roberts.
And Paul Bettany is, I believe, is British, yeah.
Okay,
and,
well, yeah. That's what I wrote down. I said I would have almost rather seen him play the master.
But I don't know if he was, gosh, I don't know age-wise.
Well, I mean, not I wasn't, like, trying to figure out age-wise or anything, but, like, if you saw him in the Da Vinci Code, he's got that evil tinge to him. He could do it, I think.
Yeah, he could, but I'm just saying, back in 1994 or 5, whenever they were filming this, I don't know if he was old enough to pull that part off at the time.
I think Knight's Tale was made in 2003, and he looked about 30-ish there, so I don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
But anyways, that's just what I wrote down. I wasn't really thinking about age or anything.
Right, but yeah, I think that. And we've kind of talked about this, I think, in past episodes of Who on Who as well. That, or at least I know that. I know what it was when I was on the Doctor Who podcast, and they were asking me if I thought the humor in the Lodger when we were talking about that episode was too British, and I said part of the appeal of Doctor Who
is that it's British.
Is that it's British. I mean, I wouldn't want anyone to Americanize Doctor Who, Sherlock Holmes, Robin Hood, or Merlin. Or King Arthur.
They kind of did Americanize Robin Hood, though.
They did, and although it was an okay movie, you kind of have to look past the whole Robin Hood thing.
Yeah,
a little bit, They've tried to do it twice. They did it with Russell Crowe, and they did it with Kevin Costner as well.
I didn't see the Russell Crowe one.
I didn't either, but I don't really have any desire to as well.
Yeah, I don't either.
Anyway, but yeah, I agree with you. I think that they should have stuck with a UK. Actor, to handle the role of the Master, but we do have a climactic fight between the Doctor and the Master that gets resolved, and there are a couple of plot sticking points that I'd like to touch on before we discuss our overall review as far as like how many stars we're going to give this or how many cloister bells we're going to give it. But a couple of sticking points. First of all, the Doctor reveals at one point that he is half human.
All right, we're going with that right out of the gate.
Yeah, of course. The Doctor's half human on his mother's side.
Not true.
Go. Okay.
You read The Forgotten, the Doctor Who book.
I did.
Yeah. He mentions in the book, in the 8th Doctor section, that he once fooled his greatest enemy with a half-broken chameleon arch. And if you remember when, what's the Asian kid's name?
Cheng Li.
When Cheng Li was pulling the items out of a bag, one of the items he pulls out is a pocket watch.
Excuse me. Gone. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Okay. But no, I like it. I really do. I love it. Okay. I never agreed with the half human thing either, but it never bothered me. And it was like everybody knows Spock is half human. Okay, on Star Trek. And so why they felt the need to make the Doctor half human or to even throw that statement out there, I don't know. Okay. But it doesn't change the Doctor. And, a lot of people will get like really passionate about this, and they will probably hate me for it. But it doesn't devalue the Doctor that we've always known. If all of a sudden he says I'm half human, I mean, if the 11th Doctor comes up next series and says that he's actually a quarter Ood, okay, on his second cousin Sydney's side or whatever, okay, it doesn't matter. He's still the Doctor that we've always known. It may take a little getting used to, but I just it didn't bother me so much, and I was even, and I've said this before, I was even able to go, okay, so that's why he can't control his regenerations. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that I agree that he's half human. I don't think he is. But I mean, I think in a nutshell, if you go back to the episode Rose, okay, when Rose first comes in the TARDIS and she's taking it all in, she looks at the TARDIS and she says, "Is it alien?" The Doctor says, "Yes." She says, "Are you alien?" And he says, "Yes." Okay, he has an opportunity there to say, "Well, mostly, partially or mostly." He doesn't. He says, "Yes, I am." He at no point in the quote new series does the Doctor ever come up and say, "Well, I'm fond of Earth because my mother was from Earth," or anything like that. So So yeah, I think that
the Doctor even makes a lot of allusions to humans being, separate from him. Even the Eighth Doctor said it in the movie. He's watching the news and he says, "I love humans. They always look for they always find patterns in things that aren't there."
Yes,
and there's that disconnect there.
Right.
Which makes me think that it was all some sort of thing that they were going to explain off and never got around to.
I'll actually explain it in the DVD extras, but it comes from the original script for the movie that never got made, because one of the DVD extras is Paul McGann's audition, which is brilliant, by the way. But he's reading from a script that is in no way, shape, or form part of the movie that we actually get. It's from a completely different storyline.
Which part is the part of the line I just said, or the half human thing?
No, the half human thing.
Okay.
In the original movie idea, the Doctor is traveling with Rassilon, and Rassilon is his grandfather. Okay. He doesn't know it at the time, but Rassilon is looking for his son Ulysses, who is who the Time Lords consider to be one of their greatest adventurers. Okay. Ulysses is the father of the Master. Okay. The Doctor finds the scrolls of Rassilon, and he brings them to Rassilon, and they talk a little bit about oh, wait a minute, it's escaping me now. The foretelling, the destiny of the person who finds the scrolls of Rassilon is that they would be of the house of Ulysses. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's when Rassilon says, "Well, I've never actually quite told you the truth, but while Ulysses was traveling, he fathered another child with a woman from the blue planet Earth. And you are that child." And he says the reason I never told you, the Doctor, of course, reacts like, "Wait a minute, so the Master's my brother. How come you never told me that?" Which has also been alluded to before in Doctor Who, that there is a closer relationship to the Doctor and the Master than just being friends. But at one time. But the Doctor asks the question, and Rassilon says, "The reason I didn't is because when I brought you back to Gallifrey when your mother died, if I had told anyone of your heritage, you would have been cast out into the wilderness of Gallifrey, and you would not have been allowed to be a Time Lord and to, do everything, whatever." So it was kind of an interesting little peek into what was going to happen originally with the movie, and never happened. I mean, because they pretty much scrapped the script. But somebody in the back of their head kept that idea that the Doctor's mother was human, and that's, I think, where that came from. So
I read the chameleon arch thing in the book, and then while I was watching the movie, I tried to look for things that might allude to that. And the first time the half-human thing is actually brought up is when the Master looks through the Doctor's eyes. Mm-hmm. And the Doctor never actually alludes to him being half-human until they go to that party, except he kind of offhandedly mentions it to a gentleman,
right?
To get his ID card, and that could have just been, anything.
Oh yeah, it could have just been him talking.
Yeah, but it's he never brings it up as a major plot point. It's the Master who brings it up as a major plot point.
Oh, okay.
So that's what made me kind of think maybe it is a chameleon arch. I don't know.
Again, we can retcon and explain away, whatever we don't like about it.
Yeah.
To me, it's a blip that I hardly pay any attention to, when I'm watching the movie as a whole. I mean, I know it's there, so we just sort of, skip over it kind of thing. Yeah. So, okay, then let's bring up the next white elephant in the room, the kiss. Okay.
Yes. Okay.
That was huge news when the movie came out. A lot of people were pretty up in arms about it, but let's be honest. Because the Doctor had never done that before, ever. Okay. The Doctor's relationship with his companions had never been in any way, shape, or form romantic. I mean, there may have been some perceived subtlety somewhere, like, say, with the Third Doctor and Joe Grant or something like that, but nothing as blatant as the Doctor laying a snog on the girl that he's running around with. But nowadays, okay, you being a child of the new series, okay, you've seen the 9th Doctor do it. You've seen the 10th Doctor do it. Mm-hmm. We've seen the 11th Doctor do it. Now, the 11th Doctor is the 11th
Doctor didn't do it. Amy did it to the
Amy
11th
did it
Doctor.
to him, but we've seen it happen, and we've seen the 11th Doctor pull back in whoa, No,
Yeah.
You're Amy and you're human. Which I think is a much preferable reaction for me, for my doctor, than say the 10th doctor slapping on some vanilla mocha lip gloss and going in for round 2. But that's just me.
The 8th Doctor and the 10th Doctor are very similar in that they're both romantics.
Yes.
And I can't remember what extra I was watching on what DVD because they're all pretty much blurring together for me now. But it was something about the 8th Doctor kissing Grace Holloway, and the blurb they used for the video was that he had hit puberty. And
yeah. I do remember that.
Yeah, and that kind of, I don't know, strung a chord, and I thought, well, hang on, if 13 regenerations is the normal Time Lord lifespan, then I guess 8 being somewhere relatively close to the middle would be technically puberty, I suppose. If Time Lords really live that long, then
I guess so. I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's like saying, the average life expectancy for a human male right now is 75 to 80, which means I'm just hitting puberty now. I've got a lot to explain.
Oh, fair enough.
Because I'm 44. Actually, I hit puberty. Well, never mind. That's getting uncomfortable to talk about.
But you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, I do understand what you're saying, and yeah, it's a possibility. It's certainly a possibility. So,
our doctor's growing up.
Yeah. And good for him, and
finally, it's about time.
Yeah, it's about time.
He's got grandchildren by this point. So
yeah, I know. Okay, well, I'll tell you what. Let's go ahead before we talk a little more about the 8th Doctor. Let's go ahead and score the movie. All right, and then I'm going to let Dr. Phil do his thing. All right, and then when we come back in for DVD extras, we'll talk a little bit more about the 8th Doctor in other venues. Okay,
but before we score the movie,
yes.
I did have one more note I wanted to make. This was just
go ahead.
Something offhand that I noticed when they're escaping from the museum with the atomic clock or whatever, and the 8th Doctor uses the fire hose to rappel down the building. That's not actually possible because Bruce Willis did that in Die Hard and almost died.
Yeah, but Bruce Willis isn't that cool. No, I don't know.
hey now.
He is cool, but see, Bruce Willis being an American action star, there has to be more perceived danger, and there has to be guns blazing when he goes down the side of the building.
I don't know. It seemed more realistic when Bruce Willis did it, though, because if the average human weighs somewhere between 150, 200 pounds, that's not going to hold for a fire hose, in my opinion.
Well,
especially if you're jumping down the side of a building.
True.
So, I don't know. It's not a big deal. It's just something I noticed and thought that was kind of funny.
Well, if that's the only plot hole that you're going to pick on in this movie, because there are plot holes you can drive a truck through, and it's just one of those take it or leave it kind of thing.
I guess,
It's not perfect by any stretch, but and that leads us into it. I'm going to let you go ahead and give me your rating first, as always, and you tell me what you think.
I gave it a 3 out of 5.
Oh, we are so on the same wavelength. So
really?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, well, I gave it a 3 out of 5 because there are worse. There's worse Doctor Who out there. Let's be honest. What was I thinking of? Oh, Twin Dilemma was not as good as this. Again, Warrior's Gate. I'm going to bring that up again.
That's the sound of us beating a dead horse. All right, go ahead.
but I mean, there's worse Doctor Who, and this is actually, it's not that long of a movie, so I don't know. And also it's the only appearance of the 8th Doctor, so I kind of have to give it a little bit more leeway for that.
Yeah. Well, and I wanted to say too that while it does have its plot holes and it does have its weak story points in certain areas, okay. On a budgetary and effects scale, okay, it makes up for it because we get things like a motorcycle chase through the city. We get better visuals and things that sort of add to what would be a more lackluster story if it was just running up and down corridors because that's all they could afford. So I think that adds to it as well. And So, yeah, I agree with you, and so I guess we're both on the same page there. We're going to give this one a 3 out of 5. All right. Okay. Well, that covers our review of the television movie. Before we go into DVD extras like we normally do, I'm going to turn the reins over to the official show doctor for Who on Who, Dr. Phil himself, who has a great segment to talk about the music involved with the TV movie. So sit back and relax, and here we go.
Take it away.
Welcome aboard, but hold on tight. These Type 40s aren't predictable. Setting dematerialization controls and activating the scanner. Setting coordinates to Humanian era local dateline 5.12.1996. Enjoying the view? Over there, on the western spiral arm of Mutter Spiral. That's your galaxy. There's Earth. Over there, coordinates 01 from Galactic Zero Center. That's the constellation of Castorberus. And within, Gallifrey. Uh-oh. Seems as if we're getting some sort of interference. Something's corrupting the coordinate settings. No, wait. The telepathic circuits have been activated, pulling us off course. Pulling us to where? Skaro? Well, here's where the fun begins. Dr. Phil again with another installment of Adventures in Time, Space, and Music. Starting from the Dalek homeworld of Skaro in this segment, we'll be looking at the music of John Debney, John Sponsler, and Louis Fabre. In this episode, we will examine their work on Story 160, serial TVM, or to use the Big Finish code, 8A, Doctor Who, the movie. Known in fandom as the TV movie and also as The Enemy Within, this feature-length backdoor pilot received its premiere in 1996 on the 12th of May in Edmonton, Alberta, the 14th of May on the Fox network in the United States, and the 27th of May on BBC One in the United Kingdom. Due to ratings issues with the BBFC, the BBC One premiere and the UK video release version were extensively edited for violent content and also added a dedication to 3rd Doctor John Pertwee, who suffered a fatal heart attack in the United States only a week before the UK premiere. Produced by Doctor Who fan Philip Segal and directed by Jeffrey Sachs, Paul McGann's only televised Doctor Who adventure cost $5 million to produce. According to Gary Russell's book, Doctor Who Regeneration, the Fox network spent $2.5 million, BBC Television spent $300,000, and BBC Worldwide and Universal Television split the remaining $2.2 million.
It was on the planet Skaro that my old enemy, the Master, was finally put on trial. They say he listened calmly as his list of evil crimes was read, and sentence passed. Then he made his last, and I thought somewhat curious request. He demanded that I, the Doctor, a rival Time Lord, should take his remains back to our home planet, Gallifrey. Exterminate! It was a request they should never have granted.
There are some interesting elements in this story. The use of Un Bel Dei from Giacomo Puccini's opera Madame Butterfly acts as a sort of musical theme, in contrast to using visual art thematically as in the Series 17 story City of Death or the 2010 episode Vincent and the Doctor. There are some impressive visual touches. The vast cathedral-like TARDIS cloister room and cavernous control room create a sense of awe. The table of clocks seem reminiscent of Back to the Future, and the gothic touches in the TARDIS sets give the show a wonderful steampunk aesthetic, a reason why I have always preferred the Season 14 Baker, McGann, and Smith-era control rooms. In the TV movie, there are numerous nods to such films as 2001: A Space Odyssey, The Terminator, Superman, and Raiders of the Lost Ark. I appreciate the subtle touches and in-jokes such as the Doctor reading The Time Machine by H.G. Wells, the visual metaphor of James Whale's 1931 film Frankenstein in the regeneration sequence, as well as the religious mythical overtones in this story. Examining the online continuation of the Discontinuity Guide, the authors point out serpent symbolism in the disembodied master, as well as the symbolism surrounding the resurrected Doctor, complete with shroud. Additionally, there is also the symbolic crucifixion of the Doctor over the Eye of Harmony, McGann's Doctor even donning a sort of crown of thorns, not to mention the half-human controversy. At least in this story, it connects the Doctor with other science fiction characters such as Star Trek's Mr. Spock and mythological heroes such as Hercules. Plot-wise, this film is inconsistent, sometimes overladen with continuity and relics from the show's past, including, but not limited to, the Eye of Harmony, the Doctor's sonic screwdriver, his toolbox, Shelly babies, etc. Elements such as the gold dust, the beryllium clock, and others could have more effectively served a year-long series rather than cluttering this single story. In this way, the TV movie has more in common with John Nathan Turner's continuity-heavy vision of Doctor Who, while the more soap opera elements seem to connect it with Russell T Davies' relaunch of the series in 2005, making this story a sort of bridge. Dating of the story's opening makes longtime viewers interpret the Master's trial on Skaro occurs prior to events in remembrance of the Daleks. Gallifrey, Rassilon era 5725.2, is placed outside of Earth's galaxy and is said to be 250 million light-years away. The TARDIS is adorned with the seal of Rassilon, and the chameleon circuit is referred to as a cloaking device, a similar sort of evasion to Eccleston's in the 2005 story Rose, referring to the police box shell as a disguise. The resolution of the plot is another deus ex machina, a plot contrivance known more often in use in current Doctor Who than in the classic series. Rescued by Paul McGann's excellent portrayal, this imaginative, if not flawed attempt to resurrect Doctor Who was up against stiff competition during the May sweeps season in the United States. The film, gaining only 5.5 million viewers, tied for 75th for the week. This meant that it only received the 9% share of viewers, a number that destined this new dawn for Doctor Who to die a quiet death. And all this after years of attempts to resurrect Doctor Who both on the big and small screens. For an interesting history of these and other attempts, I highly recommend Jean-Marc Lavoisier's The Nth Doctor. Mainly a victim of serving too many varied corporate interests, both American and British, this story suffered harsh criticism from both sides of the Atlantic, ranging to comments regarding the romantic interest in Grace Holloway, to Eric Roberts' pantomime portrayal of the Master, to many other issues of continuity. By the time that Russell T Davies resurrected the show in 2005, fandom had moved on considerably. For many fans, McGann's fine portrayal of the Eighth Doctor is often thought of as lost or neglected, the classic Doctor we don't know anything about, often fueling fan sentiment for a return in the new series, either in flashback or in a multi-Doctor story. Kept alive in the BBC book range in the decade following transmission, the Eighth Doctor would not find his full potential until his debut in the Big Finish audio range in January of 2001. Here, he would continue his adventures with Charlie Pollard, Lucy Miller, and others, fighting many adversaries, both old and new. With the romantic and other aforementioned controversies looming over the Eighth Doctor's reign, his position in Doctor Who canon remained a subject of heated debate for over a decade, until his likeness appeared in the 2007 series story Human Nature, as the centerpiece of one of the pages in John Smith's Journal of Impossible Things. Continuing his canonical validation, his Doctor would also be referenced again in the 2008 special The Next Doctor, as well as in Matt Smith's full introductory story The 11th Hour in 2010. The score for this story is as complex to comment on as are the behind-the-scenes difficulties. While John Debney receives the lion's share of credit for the score, much of it is outsourced, both in regards to composition and orchestration, to John Sponsler and Louis Febre, who is miscredited as Sebre on the screen. Debney relied on Sponsler and Febre to carry the music production from start to finish, often developing and recording his themes. After their work on Doctor Who, Debney and Febre would also successfully collaborate on the Emmy Award-winning The Cape. Composer John Debney is best known as the Academy Award-nominated film composer behind the score to Mel Gibson's The Passion of the Christ, a score he expanded into a symphony incorporating a 500-person choir and orchestra, and is set for performance in Rome's St. Peter's Square in 2010. Having over 100 scores to his credit, his output ranges from the small to the large screen. On television, he worked extensively on many series, including, but not limited to, Star Trek The Next Generation, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and Steven Spielberg's Sequest DSV, for which he won an Emmy Award for Best Main Title. Additionally, Debney became the youngest recipient to receive the prestigious Henry Mancini Lifetime Achievement Award, an award bestowed to him in 2005 by the American Society of Composers, Authors, and Publishers, also known as ASCAP. In the cinema, some of his other scores include such stylistically varied films as Iron Man 2, Bruce Almighty, Elf, Sin City, Liar Liar, The Scorpion King, and Predators. John Sponsler was brought on to add additional music after Debney heard his demo in 1995. Since his work on Doctor Who, he has composed additional music ranging from films including Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, National Treasure Book of Secrets, Pirates of the Caribbean Dead Man's Chest, and Pirates of the Caribbean At World's End. Composer Louis Febre has many television and film scores to his credit, and after Doctor Who, he is mostly known for his work on the American television series Smallville. About the musical score directly. While making reference to the Doctor's personal involvement with Giacomo Puccini, the use of Un Bel Dei from the opera Madame Butterfly is interesting insofar as the half-human controversy, in that it describes the story of a child born to parents of different cultures and raised in both. Considering how deliberate a musical choice this was and how much it appears in the finished film, it makes for an interesting, if not often overlooked, element in the film. Another, and possibly unintended, musical quote is that of the Master's theme. This four-note motive is directly quoting Soviet-era Russian composer Dmitri Shostakovich. His initials, when translated into German, reveal D-E-C-H, which to us in English, and in musical terms, translate to the pitches D, E-flat, C, and B. Objectively, the remainder of the score, now dated, suffers from stylistic inconsistencies as well as the mixed use of live performers and synthetics, a compositional and cost-cutting shortcut that was very prominent in television and film scores since the late 1980s, which may surprise you that this is still being employed in the scoring of new series Doctor Who. These inconsistencies prevent the music of the first half of the film from feeling unified in affect. To be a bit more forgiving, though, with the synthetic chorus, brass, and string effects, the score aspires to be very symphonic, and is often filled with heroic themes, bravado, and intensity. The trio used bowed percussion and a variety of extended techniques to create much of the tension in the score. Upon close study, I'm surprised by how much electronic elements there actually are in this score, sometimes reminiscent of the music from the classic series. As these examples are infrequent, I can't claim that any stylistic connection to the classic series was deliberate on the part of the production team. On the other hand, the second half of the score, much stronger by comparison, is ambitious and owes a lot stylistically to the early scores of James Horner, such as those of Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan and Krull, all influenced by composers such as Gustav Holst, Richard Wagner, Richard Strauss, Sergei Prokofiev, and others. Additionally, the orchestration style throughout makes the score similar to Mark Snow's work on The X-Files, which, by no small coincidence, was also being produced by Fox in Vancouver at the time of the TV movie. There's been a lot of mixed commentary in fandom, unfairly given at times, about John Debney's arrangement of Ron Grainer's Doctor Who theme. Admittedly, I still prefer this to the alternative. Debney had hoped to compose an all-new theme for Doctor Who, but in the end was overridden by executive producer Philip Segal. Unfortunately, Grainer was not credited, nor was the BBC Radiophonic Workshop for their work creating the original theme or the TARDIS sound effects. Complicating matters further, using Grainer's theme was a contentious issue within the production team as the BBC did not actually own the rights to the theme. Therefore, large royalties were paid out to Chapel Music for its use. There are several music examples that stand out among the many cues, including Open the Eye and Reroute Power Temporal Orbit, both offering a sense of urgency which some of the earlier tracks often lack. To Debney's credit, these are all co-composed with John Sponsler. The theme for the Doctor and Grace Holloway, often scored for oboe or English horn, is delicate and sensitive, and I appreciate when the score is pared down to a solitary harpsichord, albeit a synthetic one, to represent the Doctor. This mixture of musical periods and styles works well here as it symbolizes the Doctor's travels anywhere. Some of the more bombastic elements in the score felt alien to Doctor Who at the time of premiere, but by comparison to Murray Gold's scores since 2005, it's not stylistically out of touch with the modern series. The early parts of the film seem, musically, inconsistent, and to be objective, these sorts of issues would have been worked out in a subsequent series, so I could be a bit more forgiving to Debney, Sponsler, and Fabre, who made a good team in this outing. A favorite portion of the score for me is the moment in which McGann bids farewell to Grace. Very touching indeed. The only commercial audio release of the score to Doctor Who the movie was in 1997, released as a promotional CD by the composers with program notes. For the CD release, John L. Cantor III, Thomas Stewart acted as producers. Laurie Slomka worked as music editor, and James Nelson mastered the recording at Digital Outland CD Studios. Much of the music on this recording deviates from the finished film, making it an interesting find. Cues such as Breakout, The Chase, and Open the Eye offer noticeably different musical material that was either rescored or unused in the final televised version. For those that are interested, these deviations, among many elements of production, are chronicled in the excellent Philip Segal and Gary Russell reference book, Doctor Who Regenerations. It came out in the year 2000. The 2001 BBC DVD release, as well as the upcoming 2010 To Entertain release, both include a stereo-isolated music score. The 2010 version also includes 4 musical tracks, including the Billie Holiday homage In a Dream, as well as All Dressed Up, Ride Into the Moonlight, and Auld Lang Syne. The DVD releases uses the original version of the score, which differs from the amended version used for the Debney CD release. In addition to Jeffrey Sachs's original 2001 commentary, the new release also features one by Sylvester McCoy and Paul McGann, moderated by voice of the Daleks, Nick Briggs. The To Entertain release also includes a documentary entitled The 7-Year Hitch, tracing producer Philip Segal's quest to return Doctor Who to the screen, from before the show's demise in 1989 all the way through production and the premiere of the TV movie. This documentary includes commentary by Segal, BBC executive producer Joe Wright, BBC head of series Peter Kigren, BBC One controller Alan Yentob, and writer Matthew Jacobs. Additionally, director Graham Harper also comments on his role in the abandoned BBC Enterprises Doctor Who movie. Other documentaries on this disc include The Wilderness Years, tracing Doctor Who in print and video from 1989 to 1996, kept alive by fans who would not let the show die. Additional commentators include script editor Andrew Cartmel, past and present Doctor Who magazine editors John Freeman and Tom Spilsbury, Peter Darville Evans of Virgin Books, video producers such as Bill Baggs, writer Justin Richards, and Big Finish producer Jason Haig-Yeller. The 2010 release also includes the final installment of Strip for Action, tracing the 8th Doctor's adventures in comics, as well as Nicholas Courtney hosted Tomorrow's Times, focusing on contemporary reaction to Doctor Who the movie. All the documentaries on these discs are top-notch extras we have grown to expect from To Entertain, and all of the musical and documentary material makes these discs, be it in the Revisitations box set in the UK or the separate special edition release across the Atlantic, makes this a must-have. As a fan in the United States, I am ecstatic that I can finally own this DVD and add it to my large Doctor Who collection. If you've enjoyed today's Adventures in Space-Time and Music, please feel free to send in any additional thoughts, feedback, and corrections here to the podcast. Please check the website to support the show either by donation or by purchasing items in our online store. If you'd like to find out more about my other projects, specifically on vials, please visit thegambacast.org. To get in touch, please consult the show notes to email me directly or to contact me through Twitter or Facebook.
All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Phil. As always, very enlightening, and we certainly appreciate all of your contributions to the show and allowing us to make it a part of our podcast. But let's do what we typically do now, and let's move on to DVD Extras.
DVD Extras.
Extra, extra, read all about it. Extra, extra, read all about it.
Now, this before we go into DVD Extras, I need to explain that Marty was doing all of his viewing and research off of the original Region 2 cut of the Doctor Who TV movie.
So I didn't get to see all the super sexy extras that you got to see.
No, you did not, and they are super sexy. I actually got a Region 2 copy of the Revisitation 1 box set that was sent very graciously to me by the fine folks at 2 Entertain. So I want to say thank you to Dan Hall and to his people who sent this to me. I appreciate it very much. Although I will go out and buy the Region 1 version because I am just OCD enough that it's got to match everything else on my shelf. But
and I actually don't own any of the DVDs in the Revisitation box set, so I'll be picking that up also.
Yeah, because there is Caves of Androzani,
Towns of Wang Chiang.
Yep.
And, of course, the movie.
And, of course, the TV movie. But for the sake of this particular review, we just went forward with the looking at the discs for the TV movie. And there are 2 discs. The first one, obviously, having the movie on it. And the following DVD extras. So here's how we'll do this, Marty. I'm going to go ahead and talk about the commentary. Okay, and the info text first, and I believe the The first commentary that you have on yours is also on this set. And did you jot anything down about that commentary?
I didn't actually look at the extras on the disc that you gave me. Well, because I figured the disc that you gave me didn't have any of the extras that came on the special edition.
No, it didn't.
I didn't even bother to look on them.
Well, and okay, so the major slap down for the Hooey boys here, but the first commentary is the one that came on the original release, and I believe it's Philip Segal doing the commentary. But to be honest with you, I did not listen to it because I was much more intrigued with the second commentary, which is what I'm going to talk about now, and that is Nicholas Briggs moderating a commentary with Sylvester McCoy and Paul McGann. Who Paul McGann states in the commentary that he has not seen the movie since its initial release.
Really?
So he's very quiet in the beginning because he's busy watching the screen a lot and he's not saying much. But there is a lot of really nice background, a lot of nice banter back and forth and discussion about, what was going on while they were filming and all. It's just the kind of commentary that I like. And so I really have to give that one high marks. It's great to be able to listen to Paul McGann and Sylvester McCoy sit and talk about Doctor Who. McCoy is very much it's kind of funny to, like, when he's watching himself on screen, there's a point where he uses the sonic screwdriver on screen, and he points out to the viewer that he's holding the sonic screwdriver backwards. But then he's quick to explain that his doctor was not allowed to use the sonic screwdriver while he was the doctor. Yeah, John Nathan Turner at that point had said that the sonic screwdriver was no longer allowed to be used on the show because it was too much of a get out of jail free card kind of thing.
Really?
So they had pretty much gotten rid of it.
Maybe Stephen Moffat needs to implement that law then.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. But so what happened was McCoy did not know how to hold it, and the only people on the production team that would have known better weren't on set when he was filming the scene with the sonic screwdriver. So the next time when he shot it later in the movie, I guess he uses the sonic screwdriver again, or he's holding it or something. They actually blur the sonic screwdriver a bit with a camera effect so that the fans couldn't tell for sure whether or not he was holding it backwards. But he's got a lot of aplomb when he talks, and it's just kind of fun to listen to him, regale about it. And I think Sylvester McCoy strikes me as the kind of person that would be a great raconteur. He'd be somebody that would be a lot of fun to sit down at the dinner table and just let him tell you stories, for a couple hours. And so it was a lot of fun. But I listened to the commentary like I normally do the second time through the movie with the info text on. And I actually made a point to write that the info text here is very good. Especially if you're listening with the Paul McGann commentary, because they don't double up at all. And if they do, it's very, very seldom. But so the info text covers a lot of little bits of information here and there that it's just, it's nothing that's earth-shattering, but there is a lot of fun little bits of trivia here and there, and things that were, like, for instance, the hospital scene when they're pushing McCoy through the doors and all that. They were trying very hard to be reminiscent of ER, because ER here in America was very big at that time. It had brought medical drama back, and so they were purposefully trying to catch that tone and all that. So, a lot of little bits like that. So I encourage you to watch the movie. If you've seen it a dozen times, watch it again with the info text on. I think you get a big kick out of it. So, there is that. The next extra is called The 7-Year Hitch. And the 7-Year Hitch is a interview with Philip Segal where he goes on and tells you basically the story of how he got the Doctor Who television movie from concept to actual production, and all of the trials and tribulations along the way of trying to bring the Doctor back on screen. So very interesting there. Enjoyed that one quite a bit. The next one is called The Doctor's Strange Love. And the subtitle is How to Love the TV Movie. and it's basically it's three people. One of a woman who's a comedian. I know her first name is Josie, and I can't remember her last name. And two other gents who are British. All three of them are sitting around pointing out some of the more silly aspects of the movie and things that they actually dearly love about the movie, even though other people have poked holes in it or made fun of, that sort of thing. It was just a lot of fun. It reminded me of, say, sitting at a table at a convention or whatever with other Doctor Who fans and saying, hey, let's talk about the TV movie. And just being a fly on the wall and listening to them chat about it. So even if you're not really big into a lot of these extras, this is not at all boring. This is a lot of fun. If you're a Doctor Who fan, it's a really fun thing to go ahead and look at. So other than that, we have a photo gallery, which is good. We have PDF materials on this disc, and we also have a coming soon attraction, The Seeds of Doom. So,
so Seeds of Doom is coming out on DVD soon.
Seeds of Doom is coming out on DVD soon. Yes. So,
cool.
So that
for
was
the UK audiences, probably not for us anytime soon.
Yeah, I don't think. I don't know necessarily for us, but well, I don't know though. But because we did. It was announced in late September that as of 2011, they will be synchronizing the releases of DVDs for classic Doctor Who, so that we over here in America are getting them essentially the same week that they get them over in the UK.
Which is nice.
Which is very nice. And we're going to try to dial up Dan Hall and talk to him about it. I wasn't able to get him on the line for today's recording, but would like to discuss it with him just to find out, how much of that he was involved in and, what his thoughts are on it and all that. So hopefully we'll be able to do that in a future episode of Who on Who very soon. So, okay, so let me move on to Disc 2. Disc 2 is broken up into three main chapters: pre-production, production, and special features. Okay, pre-production has the Paul McGann audition. I wrote Brilliant. I wrote Old Script. We talked about it when we were reviewing the movie. That it's but it's really neat to see the audition process. It's unfortunate that no one else's auditions survived, or perhaps I know that there were other auditions that they were hoping to be able to get permission to use, but they weren't able to do that, and I don't want to drop any names or anything of people whose auditions they were trying to get, because that wouldn't be right. But it's too bad, because it would have been fun to see other actors take on the Doctor. Even actors that didn't get the role. So, but it is there, and it is worth watching. There's also some video effects shots. There's a test of the opening title sequence, and also something that I'm assuming is like an idea for a new Dalek kind of thing. It looked kind of like a spider. I think I've heard people call it a spider Dalek.
Spider Dalek.
Yeah,
I've heard about that.
It's shaped a little different. It's got at one point it kind of grows, it kind of stretches up, and then these metallic tentacle arms come out, and so it's definitely nothing familiar except for maybe the shape of the base as to what we would think of as a Dalek, but kind of a neat idea anyway. And that was, I think, done by Amblin Entertainment, as a matter of fact, when Spielberg was attached to the whole thing. But the next video effects was dated March of '96, which means it was done just a couple months before the movie was released, and it is some FX shots of the time vortex, the exterior of the TARDIS, the hologram of Sylvester McCoy as Doctor, the Eye of Harmony, and also the master gummy worm snake, or whatever you want to call it. So there's neat ideas there. The next thing is the production section, which has a thing called EPK, and I'm hoping that maybe somebody over in the UK or somebody over there can write in or shoot me a message and let us know what EPK is. I'm assuming it's some sort of well, see, I say UK here, but this looks like it came right from Fox, because there's a Fox preview clip, and then there's an interview with the stars of the movies, like Sylvester McCoy, Paul McGann, and all that. And it looked
like a press thing.
Yeah, I think it was a press thing. Oh, you know what? Maybe that's what PK is, press kit, maybe? EPK, I don't know. But electronic press kit, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah,
but,
that might be it.
But I think it was put together by Fox. So never mind, UK listeners, because I don't know.
We figured it out. Never mind.
You would have the inside scoop there or not. There's also a behind-the-scenes section. There is a Philip Siegel's tour of the TARDIS.
Mm-hmm.
And which was a lot of fun because he kind of takes you around. He shows you that the second Doctor's recorder was in there and a couple other things.
Really?
And really neat stuff.
Because I know they brought the scarf in when he was stealing his clothes from the hospital.
Yes. Yeah. A lot of really good. Yeah. They mentioned on there in the bit where the three folks were talking about the Doctor Strangelove. They joked about that somebody at that hospital was going to the costume party as the fourth Doctor. So they thought that was kind of funny. After Philip Siegel's tour of the TARDIS is something called alternate takes. And I wish there were more of these, but it's just a couple of alternate takes that weren't used of scenes, in the movie. And it's just really interesting to see like a slightly different version. It's kind of like a deleted scenes thing, but there just weren't that. I think there were only like 2. And so I was really kind of disappointed. I wish that there had been more. So, but anyway, there is also in this section an Easter egg. And
oh, really?
Yeah, this is Matthew Jacobs' earliest memory of Doctor Who. Matthew Jacobs is somebody that was involved in the production of the movie, and as it turns out, his father appeared in the William Hartnell episode "The Gunfighters." And Matthew Jacobs' earliest...
It's the second time we've come back to the Gunfighters. Because we mentioned it in the last episode, too.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, you're right. Because the pirate lady was the
seeing
vocalist.
A pattern here.
Yeah. I don't know. If it was out on DVD, we'd have to review it next. But
I don't know.
unfortunately...
TARDIS haven't already reviewed it and did not give it favorable.
Well, but see, they had to review off the audio because I don't think that the full video is actually out there anymore. For the Gunfighters doesn't exist, I believe. I could be wrong there. But this particular Easter egg is kind of neat because he talks about being able to sit next to the cameraman with headphones on and watching the playback monitor while his dad was playing the part of Doc Holliday in the Gunfighters. And so that's really kind of cool. I mean, can you imagine he got to do that for his 8th birthday? And that's kind of cool. And so later on in life as an adult, he's instrumental in helping bring the Doctor Who back to the screens and for the movie. So then we get on to the meat and potatoes of the second disc, which is the special features menu option. In the special features, we have the BBC trails, which normally the trails in continuity, I don't get why we put them on there, but this is actually kind of fun because these are the BBC advertisements for the television movie, and they were selling it, and it looks good. I mean, from the commercial, you're like, man, I want to watch it again. It was really good. But then there was what is possibly my favorite special feature on the whole thing, and it's called Who Peter. And it talks about the years between 1989 and 2009 when Doctor Who was not on screen, except for the 96 movie, when a man named Richard Marson, who I'm ashamed to admit I'd never heard of Richard Marson until this point, but he's now one of my favorite people related to Doctor Who. Richard Marson was the production editor for Blue Peter at the time. And he was also a fan of Doctor Who, so went out of his way to make sure that even though kids watching Blue Peter, who were starting to grow up at a time when there was no Doctor Who on the screen and didn't know who the Doctor was or the TARDIS or the Daleks or anything, he kept that stuff out there in front of them. They would do little skits. They would have the TARDIS show up on set. They would, and they would explain, and when anniversaries rolled around, they would explain about the Doctor and go out of their way to just kind of keep it fresh in the minds of these kids. It's amazing. Nice. Yeah, it really is. I mean, because, and they would say that, he would go on and explain to these kids that Doctor Who is something that your parents and your grandparents grew up watching. And there are kids out there that are, well, not kids anymore, but there are people out there that was said in this particular documentary that there are people that they have met at conventions who became Doctor Who fans not because of the new series, but because growing up watching Blue Peter, they got intrigued enough to go back and start watching Doctor Who as it started coming out on VHS. So, I mean, I think Russell T. Davies and the crew who brought Doctor Who back in 2005, and they know this because they've even said this, owe so much to Blue Peter and to Richard Marston for doing this. So it was really enlightening, and it was a lot of fun to watch. And they go straight through 2009. They talk about when Doctor Who was coming back in 2005, getting Christopher Eccleston on to Blue Peter to talk about the Doctor a little bit.
He actually came on to Blue Peter.
Yeah, he did. And they talked about it a little bit. They showed a clip of it, too, which was, really something, because he's notoriously very shy about giving interviews and things like that. So, but he did it.
Because he always, just my personal observation, he always seemed kind of distant from actually Doctor Who, just from what I've noticed.
Yeah,
even now he seems kind of distant from it.
Yeah, and I kind of feel that way too. But they did mention that he's actually a very private and very shy person. So that kind of explains it to a certain extent. So I sort of understand it. But they talk about they talk a little bit with Russell T. Davies. They talk about the contest, the Blue Peter contest, Design a Monster. And they talk to the winner of the contest who designed the Absorbaloff for Love and Monsters. That was a Blue Peter competition. And then
the Absorbaloff.
You remember the Absorbaloff that was played by Peter Kay? He was the one that you remember Love and Monsters? It was the Dr. Light.
Actually, I saw it when it aired, and that was it.
The Absorbaloff was the one from the planet Klum, which was the twin planet to Rex Coracle Falcipatorius.
Very,
and he had all the heads sticking out of his stomach and all that because he would absorb people in. Yeah. So that was actually designed by a kid over there. And then the next contest they had was win a role on Doctor Who, and they interviewed the kid that won the role and got to play in the episode with the Toclophane, before that, where Professor Yana became the Master again. He was that kid was in there. He was part of that. I guess Utopia was the name of the episode.
I vaguely remember that.
Yeah, that kid was there, and then of course later on his character was beheaded and became a Toclophane, but he didn't know that at the time. But when they talked to the kid, he still thought it was cool.
Very morbid.
Yeah. But great. I mean, really, really fun. And so I enjoyed that. That was great. And of course, the next documentary is called The Wilderness Years. And if I remember correctly, this was actually shown at Gallifrey, and I missed it when I was there. But this is, for those of you that want to know about Doctor Who, about how Doctor Who stayed alive for all those years that it was not on TV, because you figure it went off in 89, it came back in 96, one time.
It went off when I was 1 and then came back in 2005.
And then it came back, and bigger, better, and stronger in 2005. So, what they talk about everything. They talk about the Virgin New Adventure books. They talk about Big Finish. They talk about the spin-offs that they did, like Real Time, and some of the things that they did with some of the other characters. They talk about just all these different projects that rabid Doctor Who fans, got together and started doing, the conventions, all these things that proved that Doctor Who was not only still in the mind's eye, but it was still profitable for the BBC, even though the BBC didn't really want to talk about Doctor Who at the time, or didn't even want to think about it anymore. They were still making money off of it. And so it's a very enlightening documentary for those of you that are into documentaries. And of course, we're all Doctor Who fans, so the subject is interesting. It talks a little bit about how Big Finish got started, how Big Finish became able to do the Doctors and things like that. So it's a great documentary. I think it's really good and well worth a look-see. Before I go to the next one, since we're talking about Big Finish, let's talk a little bit about the Eighth Doctor on Big Finish, Marty. I mean,
All right,
you're
I
a
can
Big
actually
Finish
talk
fan,
now.
so yeah. Why don't you go ahead and give me a little bit of your thoughts on it?
Well, I started listening to Big Finish just because I was kind of interested in what they were, and I'm mostly clinged on to the Eighth Doctor ones because he had only been obviously in the one TV thing, and I think the very first one he did was called Storm Warning, and that features that actually gives kind of an introduction. It kind of comes off the heels of the TV movie, where he, I think, just leaves Earth and is traveling. He gets on board a Zeppelin, I think they're called, and he meets his first companion, Charlie, and it was pretty good from what I can remember of it, but I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to be talking about here.
Well, I'm just curious, what other Eighth Doctor adventures you've listened to. What are your thoughts on the Eighth Doctor? I mean, from what you've
honestly, heard. Like I when I first started getting into Doctor Who, I kind of ranked him pretty low because I had no idea about him. But now that I've started listening to some of the Big Finish audios, I actually rank him pretty high. He's somewhere around the middle for me as far as Doctors go. But he seems very, very dry, very sarcastic, and as we saw in the movie, he seems to be kind of a pickpocket.
Yeah. He is definitely. I've listened to a lot of the BBC Seven radio audios featuring the Doctor, or the Eighth Doctor, and oh gosh, now I'm completely blanking here. Lucy.
Yeah, it doesn't feel good to be put on the spot.
Lucy Miller as his companion, played by Sheridan Smith, and love their companion Doctor relationship, love their teaming and the adventures. And I listened to the entire first series of their adventures, and I think I got about halfway through the second series. And enjoyed all of them. I just haven't had a chance to pick up or listen to any more of them. But I agree with you. I like his dry sense of humor. I like his delivery. He seems a little droll to me, but in a great way, and just different enough from the other Doctors out there that I do enjoy it.
He also likes to name drop, which you actually see in the movie a lot.
Oh yeah. He does like to do that, and likes to talk about who he's met and all that sort of thing. So yeah, I like that as well. But yeah, so I think that it's a wonderful thing that the Eighth Doctor has been kept around. It was always surprising to me that Paul McGann never thought of the Eighth Doctor as being in canon.
Yeah,
with
true.
the rest of them. And I think when Podshock interviewed him and they talked about it, and they've talked about his image showing up on screen in the new series, he was rather pleasantly surprised because because no one's
said he thought he was like Peter Cushing, kind of left out in the cold there.
Yeah, exactly. And he because there are a lot of Doctor Who fans who enjoy multi-Doctor stories, and I think we all do to a certain extent, as long as they're well written. A lot of people are clamoring for the idea of a multi-Doctor story in the new series, something longer than Time Crash. Time Crash was cute, but let's be honest, Paul McGann. Because we don't know how long the Eighth Doctor was around before he regenerated into the Ninth, Paul McGann's Doctor and Paul McGann the actor still looks enough like he did in 96 that we could conceivably have a multi-Doctor story with the Eighth Doctor. I mean, certainly we could do it with the 10th Doctor and even the 9th Doctor, but I don't think Eccleston will ever come back and do it. So
I don't know. I think if you paid him enough, he might.
Maybe, and it would be interesting to have.
See, this is what I was thinking. We've had the 3 Doctors, the 2 Doctors, and the 5 Doctors. Why not just do the 4 Doctors and get it over with?
Well, we could.
8 through 11.
Sure, and I think it would be a lot of fun, but that's I'm sure it's its own set of hassles and problems. But I would like to point out, and I don't know anything, so I'm not saying anything here, but I would like to point out that Doctor Who's coming up on its 50th anniversary, so maybe something special will happen.
Be kind of cool.
And I do know, because I read this somewhere, that when David Tennant left the role, he took one of the brown striped suits with him. And he said he took it in case he ever got asked to come back. He wanted to make sure that he had it. So
I've often said off air that I would really like to see Matt Smith and David Tennant doing a multi-doctor story.
Well, Tennant's such a fanboy. I think he'd do it in a minute. If he wasn't busy doing something else, I think if they called him up and said, hey,
he'd camp out. He'd camp out on the set.
Yeah, he'd come do it. No, I really think he would. I mean, I know he's very busy doing other things now, but I think if he could fit it into his schedule, he'd gladly do it. So,
I think the only one you'd really have trouble with would be Eccleston.
And possibly McGann. I think he's a little reticent to do it, but I mean, he's certainly.
I don't know.
He's willing to do the big finish, so I mean, I would think that he,
Yeah.
I think the thing with him though is he hated the wig.
Again, pay him enough, he'll put the wig on.
Yeah, really. I mean, you pay me enough, I'd put a wig on. I'm saying right now. So, anyway, so let's move on in the special features here. And basically, folks, what we're telling you is if you're not a Big Finish listener and you'd like more of the Eighth Doctor, you can go out to bigfinish.com or bigfinish.co.uk and pick up some Eighth Doctor adventures, and you will not be sorry because they are very good.
They're actually really good.
Yeah. Okay, the next special feature on here is called Stripped for Action, the Eighth Doctor, and these Stripped for Action segments are always a blast.
This is the one I've been waiting for.
Yeah. They talk a lot about the Eighth Doctor's comic adventures, and when I say comic, I don't mean comic as in humorous, but the strips. I'm going to sort of gloss over it a little bit. I will tell you that it's interesting to a point. I personally felt that this particular documentary was a little too long. And so I have to confess that I hit the fast forward button at one point, and that's just because it was like, okay, heard that already, sort of thing. But I did skip ahead a little bit, and then toward the end, they talked about when they found out that they could no longer, when Doctor Who was coming back online or coming back on TV, and they found out about it, they were actually planning a regeneration strip. And they got the blessing from Russell T Davies initially that they could draw it, and there is a drawing that they will show that they show in this documentary. It's a rough drawing of Eccleston's Doctor laying down in the Eighth Doctor's costume. Okay,
and they weren't allowed to do it?
Well, then what happened apparently was that BBC stepped in and said, you can't use the Eighth Doctor anymore because Eccleston's the Ninth Doctor, and you can't show the Ninth Doctor on your strip before he makes it on screen. So the timing didn't work out right, and it never happened. It never materialized. But anyway,
they could do it now, though.
I don't know. I don't know what the thinking is on that, because the storyline doesn't mention anywhere about the Time War or any of that, and so they. A lot of fans speculate that he regenerated because of the Time War. I don't know if that's true or not, and hopefully someday they'll fill that gap in somewhere. But Strip for Action. I mean, if you're into the comic strip stuff, they talk to Andrew Cartmel. They talk to a lot of the people who were involved, and they did bring up a really interesting point. When they were doing the Eighth Doctor strips for Doctor Who magazine, they had more freedom with the Eighth Doctor than they did anybody else. And the reason is because after only one television appearance, they were pretty much free to go and do whatever they wanted to with the Doctor. They could take him anywhere. They could join him up with any companion. They could do whatever they wanted to do. So,
which they do like to do, even in Big Finish. I think there was a couple episodes where he traveled with Romana too.
Yes. And plus they also went back and did Shada with the Eighth Doctor instead of the Fourth Doctor. So, and I haven't listened to it. I'm not quite sure how they pulled that one off. But the final special feature is Tomorrow's Times, which talks about the Eighth Doctor. And basically what Tomorrow's Times is, first of all, it's narrated by Nicholas Courtney. And it's hosted by Nicholas Courtney, so we get the Brig, which I love. Okay, because we all know that I love the Brig. So he's there in all his glory, and he's talking a lot about the headlines in the media at the time surrounding the 96 movie. The reviews, the reaction, and most of it, I would say 99% of it was really good. It was really positive about Paul McGann. People were happy about that. They were happy about all that. But it's kind of interesting to go back and look at some of the headlines leading up to the movie, the speculation about who was going to play the Doctor and all that. Great documentary. So, if for nothing else, because Nicholas Courtney is doing it, but it is a great documentary and one that I would highly recommend. So I actually wrote next to my notes The Brig, and I put 2 exclamation points. So I love it. And finally, one more Easter egg. In the special features section, Philip Siegel talks about the development of the 96 movie, which to me was very repetitive to the talk about the 7-year hitch, which was on the first disc, but was still enjoyable, and it was different enough that it kept my attention, and I did listen all the way through to it. So I'd recommend that as well if you can find the Easter egg. As always, we're not going to tell you where it is, but it is somewhere there. I wish that I could tell our Region 1 listeners when this box set was coming. If the 2 discs for the television movie are any indication, this one is going to be on my must-own list, even if I was not a completist, and I've already got Caves of Androzani, but I'll pitch that copy aside for the new one, because I think that that 2 Entertain is really knocked it out of the park here, and they've done that with a baseball bat, not a rounder's bat. So
don't start that debate.
Yeah, I don't want to start that debate again. But anyway, yeah. So that brings us to a close. We talked about doing this last time, and we didn't end up doing it. I was kind of sheepishly
I went back and listened to it. I was like, wait a second.
But since you don't have this disc set, you honestly can't do this. But I'm going to go ahead and rate the DVD set as a whole, even though I've not watched the other discs yet. And I'm going to tell you right now that while the Doctor Who television movie is a 3 out of 5, okay, I'm going to give the set of 2 DVDs for the television movie as a whole a 4.5 out of 5. Because of all the great content. I would give it a 5, but a couple of the documentaries I think run a little long and they're a little repetitive. But other than that, I think for what you get, you really couldn't ask for much more. I mean, you really can't. And so I highly recommend that over there in Region 2 right now, it's out. Revisitations 1 is out as of the 4th of October. So,
all right, well,
so please,
guys in Region 2, go buy it.
Yeah, run out to the store, pick this thing up, and add it to your collection. Those of us here at Region 1, Dan Hall told us when he announced that we were getting the TV movie that we would be seeing it within the next 12 months of his announcement, which I think was, what now, Marty, a month ago?
Ooh, yes,
a little bit more than that. So
11 months to go, guys.
Yeah, 11 months to go sometime. And I'm assuming that they will push this out because the content is done. All they have to do is set it to Region 1, get the packaging straight and all that. But, we can only speculate when it'll come out. But when it gets to our shores, please go out and get this box set. It is well worth your time and your money, and it is a welcome addition to any Doctor Who DVD collection. So, all right. That being said, I believe that brings us to the end of a rather long what Dr. Phil referred to as a Podshock length episode of Who on Who. Thank you all for your patience and for listening to us. Again, you can contact us at feedback@whoonwho.com. You can call the 2 voicemail numbers that I mentioned earlier in the episode. You can also follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/David Huey. You can go to our Facebook page, Who on Who. You can also go to the Who on Who website. We have a forum there. We have a store with the official Marty.
With the Packer.
Thank you, T-shirt. The guys at the Titanium Bunker are busy working. I don't know if I'm even supposed to say this or not, but they're working on a Packer button, and it's a digital, I think a desktop button is how they described it, where you click it and you'll either hear Tobias Vaughn or you'll hear Marty, one of the two.
I'm going to be on a button.
Saying it. Yes, you are going to be on a button. So good for you. Everybody should aspire to that in their life, and you have reached it at a young age. So
awesome.
That brings us. Yeah, exactly. that brings us to a close of episode 31 of Who on Who. Thanks.
Next time.
Yes, next time I believe we start the Key to Time.
Key to Time.
So
I'm excited
with Romana 1. So join us then, and we look forward to talking to you soon. Take care.
See ya.